great floods and pestilence and famine. It's all
I mean, we are literally seeing that right now. Have you not seen Pakistan, Lois? The next excuse is going to be, oh well, now we've gone so far, right? It's useless to fight climate now. Is that libertarians are just cucks to the corporate class? They are absolutely cucked to the petrochemical industry and the big pharma, all these people, despite posturing as being against it.
There is no life without CO2. There is no life without.
What the? Speaking of Rishi Sunak's snub of COP27, there seems to be, in the wake of the issue we're having with the energy crisis and the cost of living crisis, there seems to be this uptick in people on the right wing attacking the government's commitment to net zero and the opposition's commitment to net zero as somehow contributing to the energy crisis that we have at the moment. Now, that's obviously nonsense, as the reason why we have an energy crisis is because gas prices are really high and too much of our energy generation sector still depends highly on gas. Like, I think it's between 30 and 40%, depending on what time of year it is. We still rely on that huge amounts of gas generation because of the setup of the national grid. We then have to pay a flat price because of the price cap, no matter where your energy is generated from, because we all pay from the national grid the same price because it's all mixed up. Okay, so net zero has actually really nothing to do with that. And if we had a larger section of our energy generation sector as being from renewables rather than having to use gas to generate the electricity would overall be cheaper because a small proportion of that would be dealing with the huge spike in gas prices. But anyway, I digress, because what that's going to bring me on to is there's a channel called Reasons. Now, I've covered these previously. This is Darren Grimes' YouTube channel, which seems to have actually really, since he's had his time at GB News, he's kind of stepped away from Reasons as a channel and moved across to this incredibly cringe libertarian TikToker called Jess Gill, who now seems to do the vast majority of Reasons stuff while Darren Grimes is gallivanting around with the Legatum Institute's money that he gets paid to go and deliver nonsense bourgeois propaganda on GB News. But I digress, in that, this channel exists called Reasoned, funded by Lance Foreman's son. I'm going to have to be, for legality reasons, say that it's Lance Foreman's son, Oliver, right, who funds this channel. But, it's a shell company in his name, so we don't really know how much of Lance Foreman's money is going into this, which is amusing because he got interviewed on the channel a couple of weeks ago. They did a segment called Just Stop Net Zero with Lois Perry, which I'm going to be interested to see their reasoning for this. We're going to watch it, we're going to critique it, and it's almost certainly going to be garbage. So let's go.
Today I'm with Lois Perry from Car26, and we will be discussing net zero, fracking, and crazy environmentalist groups like Extinction Rebellion. Let's get the conversation going.
Now, I've mocked Jess Gill on this channel previously for being incredibly uncharismatic, right? You'd think somebody who's been kind of gifted a kind of future media career to essentially deliver right-wing propaganda from her perspective, you'd think they would pick someone with at least a kind of minimum amount of charisma to be able to deliver this in such a way to try and convince people. But no, it just turns out that they'll get the right-wing media will literally employ anybody because they're desperate for some kind of wider media hegemony. Like, she's already, as well as being, recruited by Darren Grimes for the Reasoned YouTube channel, she's also been on Talk TV because, they will literally take anybody.
Why is energy independence so important?
Without energy independence, we're dependent on everybody else, and you only have to look at what's going on.
So the mastering level on this is incredibly low, and also the sound quality is poor as well. Which, all of that seed money from Lance Foreman doing loads of good work for Reasoned UK, even after years of functionality on the platform.
In the Ukraine at the moment, to see that us being dependent on other nations for our energy, which energy is absolutely everything, is ludicrous. And isn't it better?
Yes, are we dependent on these countries? Are we dependent on other countries for energy from renewable sources? Is that a no? Right? Do we have to pay the Atlantic for all of the wind that we have when we have Atlantic offshore wind farms to generate electricity? No, that's just the wind, right? No one has ownership of the fucking wind. So renewable is the most energy independent form of energy that we can generate. This this makes no sense. The idea that we would gain more energy independence by abandoning net zero. The reason why we're not energy independent at the moment is because we have to rely on gas. The whole point of of net zero is to try and move away from depending on essentially gas that comes from Russia and also from Norway, because actually most of our gas is bought from Norway. The Norwegian government, well, at least 70% of which is from the Norwegian government, because that's the share value that the Norwegian government have in Equinor, which is the biggest gas extractor in the North Sea.
To be independent, isn't that what Brexit was supposed to be about? Having sovereignty and control over your own borders and your own energy and your own gas and everything else.
Oh, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting idea. Ownership of our own gas. That's wild. It's almost like when Thatcher and then successive neoliberal governments sold off licenses to drill in the North Sea to companies from Saudi Arabia and also amusingly Norway. That's the opposite. That's the opposite of energy independence, isn't it? However, if we, for example, say, I don't know, had some kind of publicly owned company that was drilling in these deposits in the North Sea, we would actually be able to sell it to ourselves back at cost rather than having to sell it upon the global market at wholesale prices that we're now paying for during a cost of living crisis, right? Where we don't actually get any more energy independence by just giving licenses out in the North Sea to other, private institutions. But then again, Jess doesn't believe in public institutions rather than private institutions because she's a Rothbardian, and they believe that in getting rid of the state entirely.
Being as independent as possible can only be a good thing, and it's a libertarian thing as well.
So, how do we achieve energy independence, and what role do things like fracking come into it, and what do you think of the government's policies towards fracking?
Well, it depends which minute you're asking me, doesn't it? It depends which minute you're asking me about which government, who's the Prime Minister. Nobody knows at this precise moment in time. I don't want to date the interview by actually making too many comments about what's going on in the last 10 minutes, Prime Minister gone. But yeah, I mean, fracking could.
Yeah, Rothbard. That's how far British right wingers have gone now. But we had Sajid Javid in government for a very long time, and his hero is Ayn Rand of all people. And then we actually had kind of the libertarian IEA kind of think tank capture of the kind of top of the Tory party when they elected Liz Truss, and that went really fucking well, didn't it?
Well, would make us completely energy self-sufficient by the 2030s, completely, and only take up 0.002% of UK.
Okay, so if a private company was fracking in the UK, why would they sell to us cheaply when they could sell on the wholesale market at higher prices and get higher profits? They wouldn't. They would just sell to everybody at the wholesale price that everyone pays in a global market, right? You can't just de-globalize the world as far as neoliberal markets have gone. Again, and you're all libertarians because, as she's already said, this is a libertarian thing, right? How are you going to circumvent the global markets in this? Please tell me. Future YouTube viewers in the comments, perhaps even Jess herself, if she for some reason views this, or Darren, I don't know, right? In what way are you going to somehow circumvent the global gas markets to make sure that we can be energy independent to be able to sell the shale gas from fracking to ourselves cheaper than what would be paying on the global markets? Please tell me how that would function. I don't know. I'm an idiot. Explain it to me like I'm 12.
UK landmass in terms of the amount of land that would be required for it to do that. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, fracking is definitely part of the energy mix. But then we've got North Sea oil and gas. We've got lots of other things. Coal could even come back into it. It's.
Oh, I wonder who closed all the pits. That's an odd question. Again, that's a bit of a straw man there. Neither of these have mentioned Margaret Thatcher, so whatever. But even so, again, if these are not public companies that are doing the drilling in the North Sea or doing the excavation in the coal mines, for example, and all of these things are getting sold on the common market, why would these private companies sell to us for cheap when they can sell on the global market for more money at the wholesale price?
It's being energy independent means that you are in charge of your own destiny. You don't have to get involved in so many wars.
because the thing is, the difference between, right, it's really important to understand here from base principles that the difference between renewable energy and with fossil fuel energy is that generating on renewable energy, the vast majority of maybe nuclear, because you have to buy the uranium-238 somewhere. You have to buy the uranium to be able to use the fuel in the nuclear reactors, which is not exactly an expensive product to buy, but you still have to buy it from somewhere. All of these renewable sources, you don't have to buy a commodity to be able to generate the electricity. It comes naturally, but that's why it's renewable, right? Again, no one owns the wind, no one owns the sun. This is something that everyone has access to. They don't own the tide, for example, and so you've always got a source to be able to generate the electricity from. Whereas when you have coal or when you have gas, when you have coal-fired power stations, for example, they require a commodity that you have to purchase at the start to then generate the electricity by consuming that commodity. That's the difference between these two things, right? The reason why, if we want energy independence, we have to move to net zero, we have to move to renewable sources, is because we don't have to then buy anything on the global market. We don't have to buy gas. We don't have to buy coal, which, as I said, which would be where we would sell the gas and the coal if it was being mined and or extracted in the UK by a private company. Oop.
You've written in the Sun on Sunday.
Even come back into it. It's being energy independent means that you are in charge of your own destiny. You don't have to get involved in so many wars. We don't have to go over to Iraq and take all their oil and stuff, pretending that we're what's the word, freeing them from tyranny whilst we're just
Okay, right. Do you think that even if we had our every single theoretical oil field and every single fracking field in the entirety of the UK's landmass, if every single one of these was being drilled, do you think that we wouldn't have done interventionism in the Middle East to try and ensure that even more of this was on the common market to try and drop the price further? No, we wouldn't have done. What do you think why do you think we cooed Mossadegh in the first place?
Shoring up our own energy independence. We don't have to do any of that stuff anymore. We can just get on with being British, which is what I think
I love that. No kind of material gain. It's just getting on with being British. Wow. In which case, if it's about being British, then we're good to go. We're solved. Problem solved, everybody. Just need to be more British.
Everyone really wants at the moment just to get on being British.
What do you think about the...
It's also virtue signaling, isn't it?
concerns about fracking that...
It was actually America and the UK who did Mossadegh. It was a joint operation.
It will, cause more earthquakes, about the risks surrounding fracking. Do you think they're legitimate concerns?
Well, the thing is, if you're going to ban fracking based on seismic events, earthquakes, although what has occurred, if anything, is the same as me sitting on this chair, which, I'm not particularly skinny at the moment, but wasn't that much of a seismic event. But, you'd have to actually ban quarrying, and you'd have to ban construction. And you'd also have to ban...
Oh, yeah, that's definitely what... We'd have to ban construction, because apparently construction causes earthquakes in the same way that fracking does. Oh, brilliant, Lois. 10 out of 10. You've solved everything. Jesus fucking Christ, this person's literally a moron.
In fact, a lot of the green things that are happening at the moment actually cause seismic events, which are much more consequential. So... it's not a level.
Which green things cause seismic events? Please detail them to me. As I said, I am an idiot. Talk to me like I'm 12. Again, people in the comments, what green things? That's what she said. Green things do we do that would have more seismic events than fracking, which, as my rear end in chat points out, literally destabilizes bedrock.
Playing field at all. And Ed Davey actually boasted that he reduced the limits of seismic activity so much, fully intentionally, to stop fracking. So I don't have... the other thing as well, as well as I do, that in the USA, there is no more nation in the world more litigious than the USA. You've got 15 million people living within 1 mile of a fracking site. Come on. You really think that, there wouldn't be lawsuits flying all over the shop if it was that dangerous? So no, I'm not particularly concerned about it.
It's also worth noting as well that the US is like gigantic in comparison to the UK. There are huge swathes of landmass in the United States with no one living for miles around. That does not exist in the UK in the same way. Like, I don't think it should be fracking in the USA either. Like, why would they need to? They've got so many. They have so many fields, like offshore fields for oil and gas in the UK, regardless. Real Radhom with a 29-person raid. Thank you. Welcome to the Justice Stream, everybody. Please do click my face on the left-hand side of your screen, so that you're viewing the screen, or press F5, that also works, to come and add your lovely faces, and also with the follows. Thank you, Scribbles Hearts, for the follow. Welcome to the Justice Stream. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, again, the US does not need to frack. It has energy independence already, which, again, it doesn't have, because the private companies are selling on the global market at global wholesale prices. We're covering this person's objection to net zero on grounds of energy independence that we wouldn't have because it's all private companies. Magos Informaticus, welcome to the Justice Stream. Hope you're doing well. So yeah, the US could have energy independence overnight if they decided to nationalize all of their oil deposits. The US is one of the biggest oil extractors in the world. I don't think people quite realize just because OPEC has cartelized doesn't mean that the US can theoretically be energy independent by nationalizing all of its oil fields and extracting all of these things and then to sell them internally at cost and then globally as wholesale prices to create a sovereign wealth fund, just like Norway did. Isn't that crazy how Norway are entirely energy independent because Equinor deals with all of their gas needs so much so that they can then also export any of the surplus for profit elsewhere, right? That's what Norway have done, and then the excess profits they have got means that they have a budget surplus, meaning they have the best nationalised healthcare in the world, much better than we do, for example, here, because what we did is we sold a bunch of licenses to private oil companies that are now fleecing us for huge amounts of money during a global energy crisis due to gas prices, right? Then, which we're now paying down through borrowing to keep these automatically low, rather than even windfall taxing these people who are extracting gas on our land in our North Sea deposits that we own, right? They're now settling back to us for a profit. Madness.
At all. And in actual fact, a lot of the fracking companies have said they'll give local householders either free energy or massively reduced energy for life. So, or for at least.
Yeah. What if so? So, I mean, you're saying that there's no issues with seismic activity from fracking, but also these fracking companies are going to deliberately try and bribe people into letting them frack in those areas. Why? Why are they doing that bribe? This is literally like PG&E in California paying people out for their hospital treatment for the cancer that they got for hexavalent chromium in the water supply, right? The only reason why they're expending money to keep these people happy is because they know there's adverse effects that they want to be able to bribe people out of suing them for.
It's a sustained period of time. So,
like, I've watched Erin Brockovich. I know how this shit goes down.
You know, their house prices, but surely will be going up, not down, which is what a lot of the greenies are.
So fracking fucks up groundwater in the same way that, you know, the PG&E did with hexavalent chromium.
Argument is so no, I'm not particularly concerned. But as I say, it's part of an energy mix. So yeah.
What do you think of this climate hysteria that's come about recently? We've seen with, I think it was Animal Rebellion, who were pouring milk on the floor, and
I mean, that's nothing to do with climate. That's due to an opposition to the issues with regards to using animals for food. Or maybe it's to do with climate as well. Like, we do use a lot of, it is pretty bad for the climate to have a bunch of cows all the time. Like, factory farming is bad for that shit, right? But it's hardly as bad as the amount that we expend on energy creation, for example. Plus, a lot, like, people actually, people need to eat, right? People need to eat and drink, and meat and dairy products have been a staple of the human diet for the millennia at this point. So that's more difficult to give up, for example, than an energy creation system that's only ever really been in existence for the past couple hundred years or so. And also, we have a very, very easy way of being able to change over, which is a net zero transition.
I don't know which environmental group it was, but the one who threw soup at a painting. What do you think about their responses? Do you think we should be afraid of climate change? Do you think their reactions are appropriate?
Those particular.
I really wish I'd watched this in 1.25 speed.
particular individuals, bizarrely, it was in the Mail Online yesterday or the day before.
That Norway can do this because they have a homogenous demographics, which is definitely not a dog whistle that everyone uses every single time. I'm absolutely sick of that being the response. Every time you tell people that the Scandinavian countries do their economic policy better than everywhere else does because they're social democracies rather than neoliberal hellscapes, right? Everyone goes, oh, well, we couldn't have that here because we're too heterogeneous as a society. I'm like, really? Is that what you're going for? Is that you saying that Norway are white enough to have good economic policy? So they're not even disagreeing over whether or not you think the economic policy is good. You're just saying that we can't do it here because of some other completely irrelevant reason. It's a really weird response people always give when you say that. They knew the Van Gogh painting was protected before they souped it. Well, literally, that when someone did the same thing to some other painting in some other gallery, someone glued his face on it, they literally already knew that had glass over it the first time, right?
Being funded by the people who benefit the most from the oil and gas price being very high. So Just Stop Oil.
No, Just Stop Oil is being funded by some kind of private fund by Eileen Getty, but the Getty family have been out of the petrochemical industry for decades. What she's apparently, from what I've heard through the grapevine, the reason why she's funding all these climate protests is because she genuinely feels guilty that she is the benefactor of huge amounts of petrochemical money that she just inherited, right? She's an heiress, Eileen Getty. She's not the person who actually engaged in, working with the petrochemical industry in the first place. That was her parents.
Is being funded by people that make money off of oil and gas. So if you limit the supply of oil and gas, what happens? Price goes up. So it's complete.
That's why we don't just want to get rid of the oil and gas. We do this thing called an energy transition, where we transition our energy generation sector away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources, because then we won't have to rely on the global market. Isn't that a really crazy idea? I don't know. It'll never work.
Fake nonsense. But unfortunately, the kids that are doing it, the young people that are doing it, really do believe it, and a lot of them do look like they need I'm not being dismissive at all, but there has been some individuals that don't look that well.
Well, I'm being dismissive, and that you're a fucking idiot. You have literally got your IQ is lower than the internal temperature of my refrigerator in Celsius. That's how dumb you are.
In terms of how they're coming.
Yeah, fucking, it's just an insult rather than a response to your argument. But just, if you're watching my channel, you already know that all the climate science backs up what I'm saying, right?
Across how they're presenting, they look like they might need some professional help rather than being given a paint can and stuff and sent out onto the streets. I mean, the guy the other day that spray painted, I think it was the Bentley garage, or no, the Aston Martin garage in London. He looked completely deranged.
I mean, that's an interesting way of saying I have no scientific refutation of the issues of the climate crisis. But have you noticed how the people who believe it might look a bit weird? Yeah, sure, brilliant. That's an excellent argument that you've got there. No scientific basis, just I think the people who are protesting this stuff look weird. Okay, brilliant. 100%. 10 out of 10. Excellent refutation right there, Lois.
And no, we don't need to worry about climate change, because the climate always changes. It's changed.
Oh, I always see it. The climate just changes from nowhere. It's not like we've massively seen a huge increase in the carbon density of the atmosphere over the past 30 years or so, specifically since massive over-industrialization. That's never been a thing. That's definitely not a thing that happens. That's definitely... They always have the same excuses, right? And it's always going to continue. Ooh, the next excuse is going to be, oh well, now we've gone so far, right? It's useless to fight climate now. It previously was the climate isn't changing, climate change doesn't exist. The second is the climate is changing, but it's not anthropomorphic. And then the after that, it's, oh well, it's done now, so we're past the cusp. So why bother getting rid of all of the stuff that we love for something that we can't change? Those are the three arguments that you get. They're sequential and you hear them every single fucking time.
We don't need to worry about climate change, because the climate always changes. It's changed forever, and it's absolutely nothing to do with CO2 whatsoever.
Drop me a DM on Twitter, Paul.
And unfortunately...
Actually, no. My DMs are closed on Twitter. Drop me a whisper on Twitch.
Although they are getting a voice now, the hundreds of thousands of scientists that disagree with the theory, and it's only a theory, that CO2 causes any.
Sorry, I said anthropomorphic. I meant anthropogenic. I'm an idiot. Sorry. Long words. As I said, I've already covered in this segment already that I am indeed an idiot. Right? We all know this. I've made it clear I'm an idiot. I don't. Long words are hard. My brain, me no brain work good. Anthropogenic. That's the one. Not climate change that looks like a person. It's climate change caused by humans.
Any problems with the climate or global warming or whatever nonsense they're coming up with on that day of the week.
You know what I meant.
Have been no platformed, have been sacked from their jobs, they've had their families hounded, their bins gone through, they've been pilloried, and the modern equivalent of putting people in stocks and throwing vegetables at them or being burnt at the stake, you know. But fortunately, there's safety in numbers. And since I started Car 26, my group last year, that's Climate Analysis Reason, I like to think
that definitely doesn't sound like a conspiracy theory group, does it, chat?
that a combined effort of what I've been doing and what other fabulous groups have been doing. They're not quite as extreme as me, but you know, there always has to be one.
Yeah, literally, not just a BP as well. ExxonMobil, they already knew, as you said, in the 70s that that anthropogenic climate change was a thing. They'd paid scientists to understand that it was a thing, and then they made sure that they didn't release any of the findings because they admitted in these meetings that they knew that it would be it would not be good for their own shareholders for people to think that way. So then they also paid people to do fake science on why climate change was an issue so that they could publish that to protect their own shareholders. And they admitted it. They've admitted that they did it at the time. We know that.
Has made a difference, and we've got lots of scientists now. I mean, just recently, 1100.
You gotta understand, right? Libertarians posture all the time. They posture all the time that they are somehow populists, right? That they believe in the power of people. When the only thing that libertarians are, as I've previously said on my channel, is that libertarians are just cucks to the corporate class. They are absolutely cucks to the petrochemical industry and the big pharma, all these people. Despite posturing as being against it and shouting out for the little guy, they really are just massive cucks for the biggest corporations. It's why when you ask them about things like, I don't know, antitrust laws or anti-monopoly laws, things like that, they all say they don't like it because that's new state, that's too much state intervention. When really all that means is they just want the biggest companies in the world to be able to act with total impunity, right? This is why the big companies that do act with total impunity pay these people to say the things that they do. That's why Lance Foreman funds Reasons UK, because he stands to gain materially from the media adopting the framework of the ideology the people like Jess and Darren and Lois all represent at the same time.
Scientists signed a thing called the Clintel Declaration, and one of the guys that was actually the top guy in it has won a Nobel Prize. Yeah, these are not nutters. These are not nobodies or Joe Blogs down the pub, right? These are proper scientists and experts in their field. And they said there's no link to CO2 causing any problems with the climate. In fact, there's no more.
So there's one scientist now. So okay, brilliant. We now know that scientists are now split down the middle, 99-1. Well, I'm glad there's now some nuance to this issue. Thank you for the follow, Wine Hoarder. Welcome to the No Justice stream. Hope you're doing well.
Weather events now than there's ever been. And it's been a lot hotter than now. In the medieval period,
yeah, the idea of a personal carbon footprint was popularized by an advertising campaign that was paid for by BP to take people's ire away from the petrochemical industry and towards the actions of general individuals, right? Again, the neoliberal idea of framing a platform through everyone's individual actions rather than any kind of systemic critique or collective critique, right?
There's a thing called the medieval warm period. Also the Roman warm period, where they were growing grapes in Manchester. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Manchester, but it's not renowned for its vineyards now, is it? You know, there wasn't many cars around then, was there? You know, so maybe it's all a complete load of nonsense.
Why do you think the environmentalist movement has attracted so many young people? I remember when I was in year 10, it was almost
I'm gonna guess that they're being propagandized to by the media and the woke education system into believing the lie of climate change to scare them into supporting left-wing political positions. That's my guess. That's my guess what they're going to answer this question.
Encouraged. I forgot what the exact thing. I think this is when Greta Thunberg came about, like, her prominence was. It was encouraged for kids to, like, skip school on Friday to go to these environmentalist campaigns, and you've seen like this sort of romanticization of climate activism. Why do you think it attracts so many young people?
I think, to a large extent, religion used to be a massive part of everyone's lives. It still is for a lot of people, not anywhere near as many as it used to be. And there's something really alluring about things that have all of the symbols, like the saint Greta, and all of the that you're doing.
Also, it's even more deranged of a response than this, in that people are flocking towards climate activism to replace the fact that the country is too atheistic. This person is fucking insane. Whatever the hell she's been smoking, I really want some of it.
Good thing with sacrifice. This has got all of the things to do with the religion or even a cult, and it is very, very attractive.
It couldn't also just be that we think that there is functional utility in not letting the planet burn itself apart through the actions of humanity, that we could literally be avoiding right now if there was the will to do it, but there isn't because of huge amounts of propaganda being spread by the petrochemical industry they've literally paid you to say what you're saying right now.
I mean, you can walk around.
Again, I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. For example, when conservatives, for example, they complain about woke politics, for example, right? When they complain about this, well, they don't mean anything, because with regards to what wokeism even is, because it means different things, or no matter who you ask, they will always tell you different things as to what they think that woke means, right? But the secret kind of stealth definition of what they mean when they say wokeism is utilitarianism. They do not believe in utilitarianism, and they believe, and they don't even have any kind of concept of the idea of utilitarianism. And that's really what, and Safbash made this point on Twitter, and she's a right-winger, but she made this point in the big difference between the left and the right is their degrees to which they support utilitarian moral framework, in that the left believe that we understand that people like their cars and they like having all this kind of different access to all of these things that actually are affecting the acceleration of climate change. But we believe that there is greater utility in restricting access to these things for making sure that we have the planet for as long as possible, right? But they think that's woke because they think, oh, you're impinging on my freedoms. I'm like, tough shit. The world is more important, right? She's been smoking capitalism, well, true. And the right, they just don't have any framework for that, right? They don't believe in any kind of utilitarian analysis. And we've made, as a group of people, the conscious decision that we, on the grounds of utilitarian calculus, that we believe that scrapping, or at least disincentivizing for them. Well, we don't want to ban cars. We want to incentivize, for example, state expenditure on things like public transport, subsidy on public transport to be able to encourage more people to use it rather than their own car for the sake of the environment, for example. That's a thing that we do, right? And again, people always talk about, I mentioned this on the segment that I did about Just Stop Oil, in that what is necessary to impact the acceleration of climate change is no one could do anything on an individual basis, right? People's material needs are shaped by the markets that they're born into, and the markets are shaped by the people at the top. And so the only way that you can challenge the power of hegemonic capitalism and the way in which they shape markets, right? Markets are not, they don't just kind of happen naturally. They are always shaped by the people who have the capital to begin with when within that marketplace, right? So, for example, people want to get a new phone every 2 years, or every 3 years, more likely now. Do we need a new phone every 2 years? We might need a phone new in 1 year. We might need a phone every 4 years, for example. But people have gotten used to this idea of having a new phone every 2 years because the mobile phone retailers sell you a new phone every 2 years on 2-year contracts. That's just a thing that people have just accepted as being kind of received wisdom at this point. But there's no proper utilitarian understanding of any of this. This market has been shaped by the people who have the capital to be able to influence the market in the first place, right? The same thing happens all over the shop. So the only way that you can properly influence that outside of that is through having control of the state. to be able to protect these things, you need to actually gain access to the state, which is why these are all political projects. That's why Just Up Oil are doing the protests that they do, is because they need to influence the state to change policy to be able to make things more green. So, for example, subsidize more public transport, which we would not get if everything was left up to the market, because the market is beholden to capitalism and beholden to the bourgeois, beholden to the people who have the capital to begin with, right?
Have a sense of self-righteousness. I'm not saying religious people have this, but I'm just saying the bastardized version of
But you got
it.
to think as well, my rear end, the people who built your phone, they knew that after 4 years the support would be discontinued. The reason why they're discontinuing the support is because they want you to upgrade. They want you to buy a new product. The market incentives are such that they want to make sure that you upgrade your phone as soon as possible. So when it gets to the point where you've had your phone for so long that they want to get more money off you, of course they discontinue the support. They do things, for example, such as planned obsolescence, where they know that they may want to make it break after a certain amount of time. Remember when Apple started slowing down their old phones with the software update to try and get people to upgrade? Why, under capitalist incentive structure of the profit motive, why wouldn't you do that? I would, right?
Been taken on by the green movement. You could
Beat me to it, Iron Mage.
say that you're better than your parents because you don't do this or you don't do that, and I'm better than you because I'm vegan. I care more about the planet. There's also a sort of almost pagan earth worship element to it, and but ultimately the aims of these people is to reduce the population of the planet, because to save.
What? Reducing the population? No, we just want green energy. We just want green energy. We want to move away from fossil fuels towards green energy. That's it. We're not asking for population culls. Jesus Christ.
The planet. When they're talking about net zero, what they're talking about is a reduction in people. And that's why a lot of these
Source? Citation needed? What the fuck?
people talk about not having kids and stuff like
Well, exactly. Iron Mage puts a really, really good point there. Your Nan's original microwave lasted 30 years, right? Bang on. People used to make things within, even within our lifetimes, within some, or maybe even people older than ours lifetimes, right? When our parents were growing up, right? People used to build things to last. They would use the same thing over and over again. They'd wear the same clothes over and over and over again. But as markets have matured and things have become more efficient and people have become better at marketing and better at designing their future, people's future consumption patterns by shaping the markets in these ways, they've understood that you cannot make things that last anymore. This has gotten so bad that the same shit's happening with houses now. New build houses are crap. And the reason why they're crap is because the profit motive is such that they need to be able to get repeat business. And they're not going to get repeat business if the government doesn't want to give them a contract to build them a new house in the future, if they build it to last for the century almost. Like the house that I live in right now has existed for 90 years, right? It's still an excellent house because it was built, back when we didn't build things for cyclical consumption. But this is one of the innate parts of capitalism, which will lead to its own downfall, the need for cyclical consumption. And that's why, again, what ModFX in chat says, why right to repair is so important as well.
like that. But to get people not to have children, not to procreate, which is basically the oldest instinct of all, going back to the Garden of...
Like, for example, look at some things like fast fashion. Like, fast fashion is a real one. Let me Google this. If I could spell Atacama... clothes dump, right? For example, people used to buy clothes to just wear for the rest of their life. Right? My mum still has clothes from when she was in her 20s and 30s or whatever. Yet the rise of fast fashion. No, I want to open a new tab. There we go. The rise of fast fashion has led to this gigantic clothes dump in the Atacama Desert in Chile, right? Because people are used to cyclical consumption. Like, because not only does the fashion industry understood that, their marketing is such that they want to make you buy the new clothes every year for the new lines that come out or whatever, but they also don't create them in a sustainable way to make sure that they last you a long time. They break, they rip, they tear, they become unwearable, for example, because they're not built to last, because they're not meant to built to last, because they want you to buy again. They want you to consume again. And this is the result of, globalized neoliberal capitalism. Crazy shit. Crazy shit. Oh, there was another hilarious story about this. I say hilarious, but fucking terrifying story. Amazon destroying products. There we go. Look at this. This is heinous. I remember Chud Logic going over this on stream. Amazon destroying millions of items of unsold stock in one of its UK warehouses every year. Millions of items being destroyed. Fucking like laptops and shit. Look at this. Like, money has gone into creating these items, mining the resources, all of that stuff to begin with. So all of the raw materials and work that's gone into this to create this product. But the profit motive is such that what they can't do is give these away to people because it cheapens the value of the inventory that they already have. If someone gets a free shaver, for example, they are now not buying a shaver from elsewhere. So the demand goes down so that it impacts the value of their existing inventory. This is the profit motive right here. This is capitalism at its most revolting, right? I swear to God, if there are PS5s in there, well, I know, right? But look at this shit. It's fucking TV. When someone in your art foundation did a survey on fast fashion, most of my classmates said they spent £60 a month. £60 a month on new clothes. I cannot remember the last time I bought any new clothes. I think I bought a novelty t-shirt like once in the last year or so. New pants, maybe, new socks. Like, that's it. Crazy shit.
Of Eden, you've got to terrify the living shit out.
Yeah, we got out of we got kind of carried away there. We went off on a tangent.
Out of them, haven't you? So again, that goes back to biblical type stuff. You know, hell and damn fire, the end of days. You know, great floods and pestilence and famine. It's all.
I mean, we are literally seeing that right now. Have you not seen Pakistan, Lois? Did you not see the temperatures in India? Did you not see the theoretical temperatures we're going to have in France in November? It's here. Like, you say, oh, well, this is all biblical stuff, that they're seeing visions of apocalypse. I'm like, no, we're having it right now. This is literally happening right now. But unfortunately, you're too busy taking money from the petrochemical industry to understand this.
It's all out of the playbook, I'm afraid. And yeah, it is appealing. And kids are being brainwashed. They are. There's no ifs, no buts about it.
I fucking knew it. I see through the veil. I knew it. I fucking knew it. Kids are being brainwashed by woke teachers into thinking there's going to be an apocalypse so they can sell them something,
That's
whatever.
They are. You've even got a god-type figure in Attenborough. So you've got the little Saint Greta, and then you've got the god David Attenborough, you know, who will openly do interviews and say we need to...
I think it's, at no point during any of this have I ever mentioned anybody who I genuinely believe to be some kind of saint that's representing the climate movement, right? All I've done is argue in terms of utility. This lady is a person from someone called Climate Action Research, which is some like climate denial type shit, talking about why net zero is bad, because apparently getting rid of renewables would give us energy independence, which is literally the opposite of what it would do.
Reduce the world's population by 90%. Now, that's not my idea of a cuddly granddad. Someone who wants to slaughter 90% of the world's population.
What do you think about the government's net zero agenda? I know we've seen it, like, sort of shoved to the back now. Well, when Liz Truss was in power, I guess we should say now. But Boris was very pressed on it. What do you think about that?
The net zero agenda is nothing to do with the climate and absolutely nothing to do with saving the planet, and is everything.
I mean, yes, it is, because the main source of carbon in the atmosphere, which is what fuels global warming, is energy generation through burning fossil fuels. And also, actually, to be fair, one of the other big ones that we have, another big issue we have with climate change, is factory farming. Cows specifically, right? Chickens, maybe not so much, but cows are a really big contributor.
To do with making us more able to be controlled and restricted. I mean, the whole aims are for there to be no private car ownership within 20 years, for people to be able to, within 10.
No one's saying ban cars. We just want to incentivize people to do other things. No one, find me. Someone, again, future YouTube viewers who are shouting things, calling me a tranny in the comments, right? Future YouTube viewers who are angry at me criticizing this idiot that we're seeing on screen, find me a link of someone saying that we should ban cars forever, right? Sincerely saying that we should ban cars, saying that cars are bad, whatever. That's not good enough, right? It has to be someone saying to ban cars, because I think that if you get cars are expensive, and they will get more expensive as access to oil deposits becomes more expensive as the supply depletes over time, right? That's a thing that's going to happen. And if you give people the cheaper, more efficient alternatives of public transport, they're going to be more likely to take it, right? No one's saying ban cars. We're just saying spend money subsidizing and/or creating publicly owned alternatives to car ownership or car usage to make things more efficient, right? Because it's bad. It's bad. Like, it's not even good. It's not even a good experience. Who likes being in the traffic jam in the middle of London, for fuck's sake? No one likes being in a traffic jam on the M42. We hate that shit. Like, we'd much rather be on a train quickly traveling to our destination without having to stay in a fucking queue. But the train system is so poorly maintained and poorly designed, but because of, again, first, partly because it's really antiquated, partly because it's been neglected by consistent governments, both Tory and Labour alike, means that it's to the point at which that it can't compete with the ways in which people have access to their cars. But you look at the difference between what happens over here, what happens in Spain, what happens in the Netherlands, places like that, where there's not such an emphasis on car ownership. People just don't drive their cars as often, and that's fine, right? Just all this induced demand type shit as well. Okay, well, we'll fix traffic if we have just one more lane, because people are too wedded to the idea of using their cars. Whereas if you actually, induced demand works the other way. If you just made the roads a little less wide, rather than having fucking 10-lane highways over in Texas or whatever, and just had a high-speed rail network that went alongside it, people would just, the induced demand would go the other way. More people would just take the train. That's what we want. We want incentive structures in place. We're not asking anybody to ban cars. Yeah, exactly, Iron Mage. People only use cars because other options aren't available. Yeah, there are probably plenty of people that have said ban cars as a meme, right? And a lot of rightoids are just fundamentally incapable of understanding sarcasm. So I guess maybe they're taking that from that, but no one's sincerely saying ban cars, are they? The Not Just Bikes YouTube channel is fantastic at explaining this. True, and so is Adam Something as well. Very, very good.
10 minutes a walk of their house, buy all the things they need. But don't forget, be the government deciding what you need, not what you think you need. As I say, even with electric vehicles, which only the very rich will be able to afford, they will be all Wi-Fi enabled. They'll be able.
So this is why I think public transport is better than electric cars, right? First of all, because as she said, she's correct in her assertion that the access to electric cars is going to be restricted by how rich that you are, right? Petrol and diesel cars are much cheaper than electric cars. Although that price will come down eventually. But also, like, how many child slaves in the Democratic Republic of Congo have to mine enough cobalt and lithium to be able to construct the electric cars that we need in the future, right? Like, that's not a good thing either. Whereas if we move to, say, I don't know, public transport, be cheaper, more efficient, and everyone would have access to it. It's the great equalizer. But then again, these people don't believe in equality. They believe in hierarchy.
Would be remotely switched.
Yep, Echo Gecko, another excellent channel, 100%.
Off. They will be able to be remotely disabled. You will never have any.
If it wasn't for lithium, the US government wouldn't be able to give justification for coupping the democratically elected prime minister president of Bolivia, and then him winning the election when they went back around anyway. Pickle B with the resubscription for 2 months. Greetings indeed, and it's good to have you.
Any privacy ever again. Yeah, I mean, net zero.
What she's talking kind of Great Reset stuff here. She's not explicitly said it, but it's the same thing, right? It's just what the secret cabal of globalists, climate eco-maniacs are doing is they want to ban your car and take away your privacy, and you'll own nothing and be happy. Conspiracy theory type shit, rather than just people acting with the idea of effective utility, maybe.
Zero means no private enterprise. It means no commerce.
No private enterprise, based collective enterprise only. But commerce can always happen. Commerce has literally always happened, right? Commerce is a thing that's happened since the dawn of time, right? The difference between feudalism, capitalism, socialism, communism is the method by which you engage in that commerce to begin with, right? Commerce is never going to go away. That is a function of humanity, right? But the structure by which we engage in that commerce, that's what needs changing. Hence the difference between, I don't know, private ownership and collective ownership.
Which means that you have communism, where everybody gets their money from the state. Because if you've got
because when the government does all the stuff, that's communism. She did the meme.
Energy, which there would be with net zero, because you can't. There is no life without CO2. There is no life without.
What the fuck? What the fuck is she talking about? The whole point of net zero is it means that you do not burn any fossil fuels and you entirely run your system on renewable energy. People will still have energy, right? Things won't break down if we stop spewing CO2 into the atmosphere. What the fuck is she talking about? This is demented.
Energy. And all of these green energies are made using coal and stuff like that, because wind power and solar are a farce and a fake joke.
No, the reason why the renewable sources have to be constructed using power from non-renewable sources is because we haven't made the fucking transition, you fucking idiot. She is just literally the dumbest person I've ever seen. And I would know because I am also an idiot.
And your people need to have absolutely no misunderstandings about that. It can't be stored. It's heavily subsidised, and you know those wind turbines.
Oh my God, Samson! Yeah, absolutely. I'm waiting for it. That's a good called shot there. That if we stop burning CO2, the trees will die because they need CO2 to survive. As if they didn't already exist in the previous ecosystem where we didn't have a huge percentage parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere.
You see going round, they're powered by gas, 100% gas backup. The whole thing is ludicrous. So basically, a net zero agenda is an agenda of the hard left. It really is, and absolutely.
I mean, it's not the agenda of the hard left explicitly, but I am hard left and I am pro that. So I mean, she's got me there.
Absolutely nothing to do.
This is a person called Lois Perry from. Let's have a look at her Twitter account. Car26.org, or she's talking to Farage on her Twitter profile picture. She's from Leoncy, of course she's from Leoncy. Climate analysis reason. Latest news. Let's have a look at her website. Backs Liz Truss for Prime Minister. What a surprise. What a crazy surprise. Oh, there's another bit where Brian Catt explains that fracking will lower energy costs for UK residents by an extremely tiny amount. It's just segments of them talking on Murdoch Press. That's literally it. Net zero has been adopted already by so many companies, and net negative is commonly pushed for by actual climate scientists. Well, true, cornbread. Acclaimed physicist and engineer Brian. It's the same Brian Catt on both of them. Like 3 different times. It's just the same 2 people. Right, hang a minute. Where's that? Let me find that fucking challenge. The summer competition, which closes 30th September. Oh, we've missed the challenge, guys. The best illustration to demonstrate just what a tiny proportion of our air CO2. The issue is the difference between the natural state of the atmosphere and how much it's increased due to the CO2 ejected through engaging in fossil fuel consumption is. I'm gonna have a fucking aneurysm. Press and media. Let me have a look. Oh, this is just an RSS feed. There's a shop, a book club. Atlas Shrugged, of course, a big fan of Ayn Rand. Where is your privacy policy? I want to find out where you're registered. There's a declaration, national referendum to decide whether the UK pursues a net zero carbon policy. I welcome that referendum because they'll fucking lose, right? This is the challenge. She's awful. A pause in implementation of all regulations based upon net zero carbon policy until referendum is held. We call for all carbon-related taxes and costs to be optional at least until the referendum's been held. Then why does the British public majority support political parties that are in favour of net zero? Why is that the case? Why is that happening in loads of different countries? Why is it that in European elections there is always a supermajority in favour of green climate policy? In Slovenia, like, there was a runaway new green candidate for presidency, right? Even Marine Le Pen, the leader of the fucking National Front, had to include some amount of green policy in her economic platform because you literally could not win an election in France without being pro-climate. The public opinion is changing on this shit. Oh, company number, let's have a look, hang on a minute. Let's have a look at their records on the company. It's cool, just DM me or whisper, thinking Sabercat. It's all right because CO2 is good, so more is good, just like how it is if you had more O2, it would be good and not have any adverse effects at all, Pepe. People in the company. She's the sole proprietor. Filing history. Statement of capital following allotment of shares. Let's have a look. I have to cut this out of the segment. Oops, I was meant to close. I meant to go back. Or open the previous tab. I'm a fucking idiot. Full details of shareholders. Oh, she's the only shareholder currently. Okay. So maybe she isn't a shill for the petrochemical industry just yet. Because as of the 14th of September 2022, no one else is a shareholder other than herself. Market research and public opinion polling. Interesting. Okay.
With saving the planet whatsoever. Nothing. But the brilliant thing is they convince young people that they're being rebellious by campaigning for it, and actually they're just...
Yeah, as opposed to you, who is fighting for the needs of the multi-trillion-dollar petrochemical industry sector. Yeah, I'm sure you are the real freedom fighter by fighting for the needs of Shell and Centrica.
Like in Pink Floyd, The Wall, they're just like the kids, just sort of like, you know, just doing what they're told, and not even thinking. And it's a shame, it really is. We just need to stop oil. I think just stop them.
which is I love this comparison because, like, the kids being fed into the meat grinder in the another brick in the wall, or in the wall rather, music video film, I guess. The whole point of that was during all of the children being loaded into carts, as well as obviously being, you know, the symbolic of people being shipped off the war in World War II. But it's also about how the reason why public education in the UK existed as it did in the time when, you know, at the time of the war and at the time in which Pink Floyd were writing the music at the time, was because the whole of the reason why public education existed was to essentially create the next generation of factory workers, right? The next generation of, you know, a malleable worker class, right? The kind of people who are going to be the new working in jobs to benefit the bourgeois, to benefit capitalists, to benefit people like the kinds of people who control the petrochemical industry that these fuckers shill for.
Stop net zero. That's what we need to do.
Do you think this is an attack on capitalism and freedom?
Almost entirely.
Based. Fuck capitalism. Fuck freedom. Let's go. Full Stalinism only. Moving forward.
If not entirely, yeah, completely. Capitalism and freedom. If you do not have...
Well, the thing is that the methods by which that we're trying at the moment, trying and moderately failing, moderately succeeding in different areas, right? The ways in which that we are trying to circumvent climate collapse at the moment is all through capitalist means, right? The fact that the being pro green energy at the moment is kind of a more popular position than ever you really used to be, is because there's a capital market and a USP in selling green technology, right? It's created the incentive structure for people to be able to create businesses that will fulfill those needs and fulfill those interests, right? Right, that's why greenwashing is such an important part of being a business and marketing yourself quite right now. Oh, look us, we're all natural. We're net zero business. Come and shop here, right? Like, I am fully of the opinion that we need to fucking roll back capitalism to properly save the climate overall, right? But that doesn't mean that what's happening now, the push for current climate change legislation, is actually coming within through capitalist means at the moment, right? It's incredibly dangerous what you're saying. Yeah, 100%. Luckily, this only has 1,000 views out there. This is a fucking 75k subscriber account. And they're getting less than 2,000 views on a video from, over a week ago. I get more views than that on my channel on some videos, and I'm fucking nobody.
Cheap, plentiful energy, which we've got, by the way. We've got 500 years of shale gas underneath us right now, and high quality shale gas. If we don't have cheap, plentiful energy that's ours, there's no life.
Disraeli's motivation for passing the Education Act was because they worried about German workers being more literate and therefore productive. Well, true, exactly, right? There's a famous George Carlin clip, I think it is, where he talks about how they don't want people with critical thought and freedom and free thought, etc. What they actually want is obedient workers. They want you smart enough to accurately and efficiently be able to operate the machinery, but not smart enough to be able to challenge the underlying systems that they get perpetuated by by the economic system.
There's no. They talk about blackouts. What are you guys going to do? There's no Wi-Fi for 2 hours. You're going to think you're not alive. I mean, you've actually got some books behind you, but I know a lot of young people haven't got any books. They probably wouldn't know picking it up and doing this with it. Try and eat it. And the thing.
That's true, right? Young people don't even know what books are anymore. That's 100% the life that we live, right? I know I don't have any books because I read all my stuff on the internet. But that's mostly because I just don't like I don't want to have the space. Before buying my house, right? I used to move around a lot. Lugging books around, fucking nightmare. Do not recommend that in the slightest. Would rather not. But again, you can realize I probably should end the segment here, but there's only 5 minutes left, so I might as well finish off. This clear person's clearly an idiot, right? Yeah, young people don't even know what books are anymore. As if that's not a joke, then she's fucking idiot. And if it is a joke, it's not even a very funny joke.
Thing is, it won't be any light to read anyway, so you have to have.
100%. I would like to say that I think Yankee Tanky is at least 5% more erudite than this person is.
A candle. They talk about 2-hour blackouts in the evening at the beginning of next year. I mean, can you get your head around that? Because I can't. Yeah,
the crazy part is, you're right. It's pathetic that we're in the position we are right now, as the size of the economy that we are right now, and the powerful country that we are right now, at time of recording at the very least, right? That in the year of our Lord 2022, we're expecting there to be rolling blackouts over the winter period, right? You know what would stop the rolling blackouts, Lois? You know what stopped the rolling blackouts? Fucking net zero, right? An entirely renewable sources of energy, right? The reason why we're having blackouts is because the supply of gas has been constrained by the fact that we have to pay for it at global prices, right? If no matter how much fracking that we were doing, right, that they would still be selling at global oil prices. If we didn't have to rely on oil and gas to be able to power our electricity, there would be no rolling blackouts. If we were entirely renewable, if we'd built more nuclear power, right? For example, if we'd built more nuclear power like they've done in France, for example, there would be no rolling blackouts, right? The reliance on gas is literally what is causing the blackouts. Are you fucking stupid?
I mean, my dad told me about the 1970s where there was blackouts and he was reading by candlelight and all of that, but that was before the internet. I mean, everything runs off the internet. You've got some people who won't be able to open and close their curtains in their house because they've got Wi-Fi enabled stuff in their house. Or it's going to be absolutely terrifying. So yeah,
I mean, it's not going to be terrifying. It's going to be fine. The terrifying part is not having access to close your curtains or have access to Wi-Fi. The terrifying bit is the people who are going to have to, who rely on electricity to power, for example, I don't know, things that keep them alive, like hospitals and shit. Like people who have like dialysis machines that they need to keep on constantly at home. That's the terrifying bit. Not having to read by candlelight.
maybe that might wake younger people up. Maybe that might do it. Think, oh my god, I can't charge my phone. It's the end of days. I'm being simplistic.
I mean, you can just charge your phone before the blackout. You can just have a portable battery. Like, do you think we've not been to a music festival? We know what to do when we have no access to a phone charger.
But sometimes people need to realise what it's like not to have energy, to realise that we need to do what we need to do to keep the lights on, literally. So, yeah.
Do you think there's much...
Okay, good base. Well, glad she changed tack and she now agrees with this. The over-reliance on a volatile fossil fuel market is a bad thing for the country. Well, she came around by the end of it.
That people will see the craziness of environmentalism with groups like yours, but also with the fact that I don't think the public is in favour of these radical environmentalist groups. I don't think the public thinks it's a good look when they're blocking the roads and blocking the ambulances for people's safety. Do you think there's any hope of that?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've seen massive increases in support for what we're doing since we started in October last year. We did some polling while Liz Truss was running, and for leader of the Tories and for Prime Minister. Oh God, but that worked out well, didn't it? But our
Oh, really? Does the libertarian nonsense model of capitalism that you guys shill for, did that not work in the slightest? Was it an absolute fucking mess? Oh, I think it might have been. Oh, crazy that. What a fucking surprise.
Polling showed that the majority of the British public across everybody wanted a pause and review on net zero. The majority. And of Conservative voters, 70%. That included the Conservative voters, everyone who voted Conservative at the last election. So that would also include all the red wall seats that Boris got and all of that. So yeah, the public are on side. They're very pro-fracking. It's quite interesting to know.
Are you fucking? They're not pro-fracking. No one like. Let me find some polling numbers. Fracking polling. YouGov even has a section on it. I'm willing to be proved wrong. Should Britain start extracting shale gas? 46% no, 27% yes. There you go. Brilliant. Right. Immediately proved her wrong.
Note that all of the hustings, the leadership...
Fucking first result on Google.
Hustings with Sunak and Truss recently, when they talked about fracking, the whole place went up with cheer. Because, if you're, especially if you're a Brexiteer...
The only people that will gain from fracking are petrochemical billionaires. That's it. And they're shareholders of these companies. You're not going to benefit. I'm not going to benefit. Stop shilling for someone who doesn't give a shit about you.
And you like the idea of personal and sovereign autonomy, then this is a key component to that. And then we're not held to ransom by anybody else. Why should we be held to ransom? So yeah, I do think, and also going with what you were saying as well, the Stop Oil people, yeah, they're shooting themselves in the foot. Absolutely. People hate them.
I mean, that is true, right? The blocking the roads protests are shit. They should stop. I don't care. Like the painting one's brilliant. Got loads of worldwide coverage, and they managed to get people on side, right? Spraying Tufton Street and random luxury car manufacturers, love it, brilliant. Only people you're pissing off there are people who have either power or money, and I don't give a shit about any of these people, right? And Coulter with a lobotomy. 100%. That is exactly what she is. And Coulter with a lobotomy. Very, very true, Scribby. But yeah, but the protests where they sit in their own and inconvenience normal people, that is going to turn people away rather than just gain publicity, as opposed to the painting soup and the spraying paint over the luxury car manufacturers and 55 Tufton Street.
They really do.
Thank you, Lois, for joining me on this interview, and thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Do not like, comment, or subscribe to Reasons UK. They are fucking stupid. But you can do the same thing to me. You can, if you're watching YouTube viewers, you can become a member of this channel for such searing political analysis as climate change bad for the grand total of 99p and get you access to emotes. I actually have new emotes on my channel on Twitch as well, because you get more emotes on Twitch than you do on YouTube, which is why the price is $3.99. If you want to subscribe on Twitch for $3.99, you can skip the ads. If you don't have a VPN, and which also gets you access to my excellent emotes and makes you a commendable non-freeloader. You can do that if you really want, and you get see Pickleby demonstrating how good those ads are. If you really want the ads, the emotes even are. But that was an excellent segment, which definitely did not turn my brain into fucking soup. So thank you very much for watching, future YouTube viewers, and I'll have another segment uploaded at some point in the future.